Now here's a video I would love you to watch to the end. It's about beavers. Now, it's specifically, beavers have many benefits. They're ecosystem engineers, they are a keystone species, they're proven time and time again to improve habitats. They are positive disruptors. Now, very often when we talk about beavers, people's first concern, they've been extinct for 400 years. This is new to everyone. Their first concern is when they fell large trees, and they're right to be concerned. And sometimes people say it's no different to me going out with a chainsaw and felling the trees, but they are far from the truth. Now, this tree here, unfortunately, it's been felled by a beaver, but worst of all, humans have pulled it up onto the bank. And that is bad news, because that is saying this tree has died for nothing, because it hasn't had the chance to give out the benefits that would have come from the beaver laying this tree in the stream. So let me explain to you. Now, it's very unfortunate that this tree that got felled has been cut and brought up onto the bank. That is a bad move, and I'll show you why in a minute. Let's get all teacher on you. Now, it looks bad, but these fallen trees are part of creating how a river should be. Obstacles like this fallen trunk and branches help to connect the river with its floodplain, forcing water in times of high flow back into the riverside areas. And that is along with any sediment and nutrients that it may be carrying. Large woody blockages slow the flow of the river. And as the speed of the water is reduced, so is its ability to erode the riverbank. We want it to meander and change. This straight channeled river is not how a river should be. So these fallen trees will reduce its ability to erode the riverbanks. And as water flows over and around the blockage, localised scouring of the riverbed creates pools that provide additional shelter and resting areas for fish and breeding areas for fish. Famously, not around here, but famously elsewhere, salmon. So it creates resting areas for fish as well as exposed areas of finer materials, and it's things like that that, for example, salmon might lay their eggs in. Now, many of these trees, apart from this one because they pulled it out the bank, will still grow. And as the beaver chews bits off, those cuttings will go downstream, get wedged in the bank, and some of them will grow. These branches and roots in the water provide shelter. Trees and rotting leaves as they grow alongside the riverbank are important food for larger aquatic vertebrates and crustaceans, which in turn feed fish and birds. So it's so important to have a complex river with trees in it and meandering, and unfortunately, and that's not the fault of the people that are alive today, unfortunately we channeled it and we drained the riverbanks for farming, the floodplains, we drained the floodplains, sorry, for farming. As you can see, this one here is still flooding behind me. Now, it really bothers me that this great big tree that got felled this winter has been cut and pulled up onto the bank. This basically means this tree has died for nothing. And if we keep doing this, we're going to end up with hardly any trees along our riverbank. And that's down to humans getting involved, not down to beavers. Because, just take a look at this one here, quite close to the river, so I'll be careful. But you can see there, this has been chewed by beavers, and then that bit there was still connected. And look where they've come in with a chainsaw and cut that half that was still connected. So willows have evolved with beavers. And what would have happened is, the beavers have chewed, they normally only go like half to 2/3 through the tree, and they very often, it's not always the case, they very often leave it for the sort of the wind to finish it off, or the final bite. Beavers can actually listen to the tree and sense when it's going to go. They're extremely clever. And this tree was laying in the river last time I was here, which was brilliant because it created a shaded area and it would have carried on growing. It would have phoenixed, it would have shot up. But unfortunately, humans have come along, cut it and pulled this whole tree up onto the riverbank. And now this tree is going to provide a bit of, the beavers are still going to eat the bark while it's kind of alive. And by the way, beavers only really tend to be feeding on the bark and felling the trees in the winter. In the summertime, there's a lot more shrub along the bank and they tend to feed on that. So this kind of stuff is more obvious in the winter time. So this tree will just die, and deadwood's really important. Let's hope it stays there as deadwood, because that's great for invertebrates. But this tree is now not going to get the opportunity to carry on growing because humans have cut it and pulled it up onto the bank. Now, a beaver might now go and do that to another tree because it still wants to create habitat and it still wants to get to bark. They'll fell the tree and it would carry on growing, but then humans might come along, cut it and pull it up on the bank again. And at that rate, we will have hardly any trees left on the riverbank. And that is because of misunderstanding of humans. That is not because of beavers. So it's a real shame. Now, quite often, not always, some fishermen really know their stuff, but quite often fishermen really don't like beavers. But I really want to take the opportunity to point out that beavers are massively beneficial to fish. Big time. Very famously, not round here, but Scotland, Canada, they're very beneficial to salmon because by the tree laying down, the scouring of the bank and the fine minerals is perfect for fish to lay their eggs. And it's perfect for invertebrates, for the fish to feed on. So beavers massively, massively benefit fish. I can't stress that enough. So fishermen, you should really, really be happy that beavers are back, big time. So yeah, beavers fell trees for many reasons, but that's the main one I want to talk about. And what's happening now is humans, that they've been extinct for 400 years. This is new to a lot of people. Humans are stepping in and clearing away those fallen trees. We need to allow them to fall into the river, cut them back a bit so boats can get through, but this is not a normal river. I don't think there's probably a normal river in the country anymore. We've altered the landscape so much. So please, pay attention to the positive benefits of beavers. And if someone's watching this video who has been cutting the trees that the beavers have felled and pulling them up on the bank, rethink what you're doing, because you're making things worse and there will be less trees along the river if you keep up that bad practice. Beavers, get wild.